Katubanjulire Save to Save Company oli bweru wa Uganda oyagala kujjayo ssente tuzitereke oba zikole ekyenyi kyezitekebwa okubanga zikola olina ettaka ly'otunda oba oyagala kugula ttaka oyagala national ID oba passport oyagala kutwala ku kisaawe oba kukujjayo oyagala amazzi amayonjo ku faamu yo oba wakaawo oyagala okuteerayo sola etalinamu yadde okuzimera kwonna oba oyagala looni ku magoba amatonotono weekwate Save to Save
Company. Yet another project, this time around with a matriarch, Mama Maria Louise Prean, an Austrian woman who came to Uganda being sent by God with a burden for African children. She's the founder of Vision for Africa, first came in here in 1995. Since then, she has done very, very great projects for our people. She has boosted us with projects in Kayunga, where a vocation school is, with a project in Kiyunga on Kayunga Road from Mukono, where the Vision for Africa vocational school is, with a school in Nachifuma that houses over 2,000, going to 2,200 children, in Jinja, with a project in Karamoja, where there is a kindergarten for over 300 kids, with a primary school for over 700 kids, with a village for elderly people from 70 plus, never heard of in Uganda. As of now, over 20,000 children have gone through Vision for Africa, and soon they are going to have a celebration, and it's going to be wonderful. This is a woman that you want to hear her story. Great, great woman of faith. She came without knowing where the finances would come from, but with a burden. Go to Africa, make a difference. And she has been here for over 23 years and counting. Her story is wonderful. She has helped us. She has mothered us. She's a matriarch. She tells African children, you don't need to go to the West. The West needs to come to you. You are a hero. You are a star. Success is with you. Africa is the foundation that is building all other continents. You need to hear her story. These are the things she's teaching our children. And she says, African heroes are yet to sprout out, and they are going to be seen. Thank you so much for watching. We thank Save to Save Company. They are our financiers for all these projects round. If you're there and you want to sponsor, please get in touch with us and we shall receive you gladly. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Now, our eyes on Mama Africa, Mama Maria herself. Mama Maria, we've had a wonderful session so far. Your story is so wonderful. Right now, we want to touch base with some of the patches that we have gathered from the stories. Would you kindly tell us more about your mother and father's character and the lesson that you learned from them growing up, and probably how your relationship was with your siblings when you're growing up?
Yes, I would love to. You know, God's number one love is for the family. Family is created by God. And marriage is, you know, the Bible starts with a wedding, ends with a wedding. The first miracle Jesus did was at a wedding.
Yeah.
And this whole universe was created for a wedding of the Lord Jesus Christ with the bride of Jesus. So marriage, family is at the heart of God. And I'm so thankful that I had parents that were, how shall I say, that were an example without knowing it, you know. For example, my mother, her children were number one. I mean, the husband first, but then the children. And she had a very poor childhood herself, and she wanted definitely her children to do better. And so I'm sure that I know my mother, you know, we went through the war and there was very little food, and she ate only the leftovers of her children. She never had her own plate full. She waited, what we left over, she finished. My mother was the most frugal woman you can imagine. No waste, nowhere. When there was some leftover from lunch, she fixed a dinner that you thought it was brand new, but it was the lunch changed into another meal. She was, and you know, I remember, if any of us would throw away any piece of bread or something, we would get a spanking. So she trained us to be very faithful in the little things. And I see, you know, a lot of times that especially poor people are not very faithful in the little things. And they think the rich ones, they can, you know, just But you have to learn from the rich. The rich are faithful in the little things. And so I was very much, for example, my winter coat was very ugly looking, you know. So she opened all the seams, turned it around, and sewed it again together.
Oh.
It looked like new, because inside the colors have not faded.
Oh.
And yeah, she was just a very, very frugal woman. And also, I learned also from her to get the best for the least price. You know, for example, in the neighborhood we had farmers with a lot of apple trees, and a lot of apples fell on the ground, and they would rot on the ground. So she went to those farmers and said, "Can I have those apples on the ground, only on the ground?" They said, "Yeah, of course. You know, we're glad you cleaned up the meadows." So she brought baskets full of it, and we cut out the bad stuff, and the good stuff she made little slices. We put it on a string and we dried it. And in the wintertime, we had dried apples, which we put again in water, and they swell up again. And it didn't cost nothing, because they would have let it rot or give it to the pigs. But my mother was extremely creative in not wasting anything. And she was a very thankful person, not demanding hardly anything for herself. And she sewed for us children our own clothes. Also, she was not a seamstress, but she learned it. She learned it because we couldn't afford a seamstress. And so, you know, she also with the shopping, she knew the shops where she got the best for the least price. And she trained me. When I was 7 years old, I had to do the shopping.
At 7?
At 7. She gave me the money. She gave me a list. I had to go to the shop. I had exactly to how much everything was. And then I had to get back and give exactly what was the left cash. If there was no matter how little missing, I had to go back to the shop and correct it.
Whoa.
So mother trained me to be extremely trustworthy, to be extremely accountable. And it's very important because the children, they learn from watching the parents.
Yeah.
You know? And also very tidy. But, you know, the last time I got a spanking, I was 18 years old.
18?
Because I wore my Sunday shoes on Monday.
You wore your Sunday shoes on Monday, and Mama had told you these are Sunday shoes. So she calls you at 18 and spanks you.
I wanted to move out. I was so angry. But then I said, no, I forgive her. She just wants us to be the best stewards of everything.
Sure.
Yeah. And my father, I told you he was working in the insurance business and very much always in favor of the
customer.
The customer, you know. So they wanted to be insured with him all the time. And he was the best insurance man in Austria, which gave him a lot of privileges and a lot of honors. But my father, in his heart, I think, was a builder. He was dreaming. Yeah, there's another issue. My grandfather, the father of my father, was a wealthy man. But he had a brother who was a show-off. And he bought a castle. And at the bank asked my grandfather to sign to be
the guarantor.
And he lost everything. And my grandfather got poor. He had 3 beautiful houses in town. Overnight he lost everything. And that left such a shock in the siblings of my father and also his. All of them, all their goal was to get a house in their life. And my father also wanted to have his own house in order to remove that shame that they had to, because they had to move out of everything. And my grandmother moved into the office of that lawyer that fulfilled that duty, you know, to take away everything. She said, I've not done anything wrong. I'm seated here until you give me a place for my children and me to live. And he got them then an apartment, which we also lived in later. But my father was a hardworking man. not far away from where we lived, we had a piece of land, I mean, the size of this place here, and he made a garden out of it. I mean, a fruit garden and vegetable garden. Every day in the morning, he was in the garden. In Europe, you know, in summertime, it gets light at 5 in the morning. So he got up at 5, went to the garden, and we had everything there. We had cabbages, we had salads, we had fruits, we had potatoes, we had cucumbers, we had carrots. He provided us for many years all the food for the cooking. And so we was a very diligent man. And my mother was a very frugal woman. I mean, they worked very well together. There was no wastage in our house. And that, you know, makes a big impact in your life.
Oh, yeah, it does.
And so he wanted to build a house. That was his dream. We had very little money. But he got some property to rent. And he rented it. And it was about 10 kilometers from the place where we lived. And so every weekend with our bicycles and the food in the back, we went to this weekend house. No, it wasn't a house yet, to the weekend property. He fenced it, had a simple hut there, but then he built a house. And I was in charge of the concrete mixing machine. Because we couldn't afford builders. We had one mason, but all the rest of the work, my mother and we children did. And I was 17, my brother 14. The others were little, so we were happy when they were playing. But we had every weekend, every holiday, we worked like crazy. I had hands like a hard mason. So much, you know, hard skin.
Hard skin.
From the hard working. And yeah, but, you know, in our days we obeyed our parents, even if inside we rebelled, you know. But we had to do what they said. And several times I invited my friends to come on the weekend. They came, and my mother was a good cook. So after one weekend, they said, Maria, the good food of your mother is not enough to come to visit you and have to work so hard. They never came again. But, you know, we had not the slightest desire to do anything else on the weekend. We were so tired but to go to bed. And so it kept us away from any stupidity like discos or something. And in my life, I have never been in a disco, you know, because we only fell to bed and slept and were happy. But the house is finished, it's still there. And it's really, it has been, for the first time we had our own rooms, because up to 17 I slept with my grandmother, my aunt and my 2 sisters in one room.
So basically speaking, you grew up with a large family in your home.
My grandmother was living with us and my father's sister. And then 4 children and mom and dad. So we were 8 people.
8 people.
Yeah, but we slept in one room, very tight. My 2 sisters, my grandmother, my aunt, and my grandmother snored that the walls were shaking. I mean, I was under the cover. I had put something in my ears, we couldn't sleep.
Ooh.
So when I was 17, I only had one desire. Lord, if you love me, give me one room. 3 by 3 meters, a bed, a little cupboard, a table, and a chair, and I would be the happiest person in the world. That was my dream for my life.
So all growing up, you slept with your grandmother, with snoring grandmother, up until 17.
Yeah. So you know that was a real challenge.
Sure, I can imagine.
And you know, only one bedroom for myself, and now we have hundreds of bedrooms in the hotel and all the staff that live here. It's a miracle beyond description what God can do. But I grew up very poor, so I understand people of poverty. I grew up in the war, so I understand people that have war fears. And just, you know, when you live in a war, you don't see any future, you don't see any security, you don't have any hope for the future. So but God allows us to go through a lot of situations to understand other people.
Yeah.
To understand other people.
Yeah.
And that was very important. But my mom and my dad have really put diligence in my life, hard working, being very faithful in the little things, you know, very, not throw away nothing. And even here, I am very, very angry if I see things thrown away. Like we have now pigs, also the pigs there's hardly anything that we need for the garbage, besides that stupid plastic, you know, that everything is packed in. But the rest we always use for something. Yeah, so I'm very thankful that I've had such a good example in my parents. And my sister, when she came here for the first time, and there were not many buildings here yet, she said, Maria, if Daddy would see that, he would be very jealous. All he did all his life, built one house, and you built one house after the other. I said, well, it's by God's grace, not by doing. Yeah. So I'm thankful, very thankful. And my mother, you know, the marriage was also, I mean, it was not easy. And I told her once, I said, Mama, have you ever thought of divorce? She said, never, but of murder. But I thought of you. And at the end, the last years, they really grew together. Because my father got very sick, so my mother massaged him. They got in touch.
Oh, yeah.
And the last years were very loving and very peaceful. Well, they never shouted, you know, this was, we never knew that they were fighting. But it was a cold war.
They used to have a cold war inside the home.
Yeah, but they grew together very lovingly, and they overcame, and they always wanted the best for their children. And that to me is also very much in my heart. All the children that God is giving me, I want the very best. I want them to shoot up and to do 100 times better than I have done, you know, because even Jesus said, we need to do greater things than he has done. So every parent is very happy if their children do even much better than them.
Did you, by any means, ever get to learn, if you will, free enough to talk about it, what would have been the cause of their Cold War, your parents?
Well, you know, my mother, she lost her mother when she was 7 years old. You know?
Sure, you say.
And then her father became an alcoholic because he was so shocked that he lost his wife. And my mother was very disappointed with him, that he would leave the children alone. And she became the mother with 7 years, you know, and he only thought of his own sorrow. So she developed like mistrust towards men, that you can't trust them. And she was very much in charge. And of course, no man likes this competition, you know. He wants to be the number one.
We don't.
You don't, you see. Even not in Africa. But she had a mistrust deep inside. But as they grew together, you know, they became much more. Honey, can you stop that?
Yeah, we can.
What is it, honey?
Was called who, I forget his name, he had a funny name. I was there in prison once.
Yeah. So I was there about 4 or 5 times, and something came out of me. I was shocked myself. I told these people, you are here in the University of the Holy Spirit. You know you deserve death, but Jesus paid that death. And you are here trained to be pastors out there. You are just here. God put you here to give you time to get to know Jesus and to grow in him and to have a message for out there. You know you deserve death, but they out there also deserve death, but they don't know it. Yeah. You can preach that to them.
Sure.
So you know what they did? They took me by the hand, brought me to the highest of that prison. Mama Maria, if you ever talk such nonsense, we don't want to see you. We don't want to see you here anymore. They are here either to be hanged or to die naturally. Don't give them false hopes, or we don't want to see you anymore. I said, darlings, I was shocked myself when this came out of me. Give me time. Maybe I am a true prophetess. Give God time.
Yes.
A few weeks later, Orombi calls me. Bishop said, Maria, pray. I have a meeting today with the president, and I will ask him to do away with the death penalty. Pray for me. So I prayed, and I felt I didn't come further than this ceiling here.
Yeah,
I said,
you're not breaking through.
Something is not happening here. In the evening, he called me. He said, Maria, we have a very good president. When I asked him to do away with the death penalty, he said, Bishop, if you guarantee that these murderers are reconciled with all the relatives of the victim, I let them go. Otherwise, I protect them from being lynched.
Wow.
That is wisdom. So he told me that. And that was for me an exclamation mark.
Yeah.
Reconciliation. I went to prison the next time with such a big pile of writing papers. I told the boys, my boys, they called me all their mother. You know, the prostitutes of Kampala called me their mother. The prisoner, the condemned prisoners, the murderers called me their mother. This is my famous children, you know, prostitutes and murderers. So I came and I said, my boys, we have a way out of here. I told them the whole story. I said, if you get reconciled, ask for forgiveness, all the victims, all the relatives of that victim that you killed, the president will set you free because he wants to keep you safe so that you don't get lynched. I promise you, the ones that could write, they wrote like crazy. The others that couldn't write dictated. I asked the others, let me dictate a letter. And there were people coming to this prison the prisoners never seen, to talk to them. They were in each other's arms crying, forgiving each other. And everyone the president found out. They reconciled, they got out. Now, just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, here a man was sitting. He said, Mama Maria, 20 years ago, you prophesied over me that I would be a free man. I was a murderer. I am free now. God took me out of that prison shortly after you gave us this wonderful message that we should reconcile and ask for forgiveness, all the relatives of those victims. I already have 47 churches in Uganda.
47 churches.
47 churches. I'm a minister, had 2 beautiful children, a beautiful wife. He said, Mama, you are a true prophetess. I said, you know, that makes me very happy. And several times, I'm no longer going shopping because my people drive to Kampala and I hate driving to Kampala. So I just write a list and they bring me everything, you know. But before, I went several times myself. And almost every time a man fell around my neck and thanked me and said, who are you? I'm a former condemned prisoner. And now I'm out, Mama. I'm free. And this one is my church over there. I'm a pastor. Will you come and preach here?
I remember in those days also there used to be a pastor called, I think he was called John Mugabe. He used to work in prison so much.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you know him.
Yeah, I know the name of that.
John Mugabe used to have large hair.
Yeah.
Huge hair. He used to work with prisoners.
I loved to work in prison because you don't need to convict them that they are sinners.
I know. At least they know.
They know that one. So, you know, in the world, the people think they are so wonderful, you know, and unless you realize, no matter how good you are in the eyes of people, you are born with a sinful nature. You know, every one of us, we are cursed when we come on. You don't need to teach a child how to be bad. It comes naturally. So I was very happy about, I'm very happy. And out of the 470, all out.
470.
All out. Now, they have about 90, I hear, new ones, but these are new ones.
Yeah. Wow. All right. So, are you ready?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
2 things. One, We would like to know more about your ancestors. Here is Grandma saying, "Hail Jesus," while others saying, "Hail Hitler." What more can you say about your ancestors going back?
Okay. Well, you know, the Bible says that the sins of the forefathers have effects.
Yeah.
5, 6 generations, and even if you persecute the Jews, it's 10 generations. And so our ancestors have a big influence on our lives.
Yeah, sure.
They either open good doors for us, favors, or we have to we have to bear for their sinful nature. And when I came to Uganda, it was so clear that I had easy access to the highest circles in Uganda without looking for it, you know. And I said, Lord, what is the problem? You know, where do I get such favors? I am not a person that looks for favors. He said, because your ancestors have given you a big blessing. I said, what is the blessing? Well, then I know, I have been there myself. The castle is no longer there, but the church and the castle tower in Switzerland. My ancestors were aristocrats. And I don't know much about them. I just know my name, Bruni, is my maiden name, is a royal name. And I was born with an aristocratic title, but Hitler cancelled all of that, you know. So I left everything. And you know, there is, with our daily choices, we also lay the foundation for our children. Glory, please. That's, I mean, I'm very thankful. I never met those people. I never knew about them. They were living on the border between Italy and Switzerland on a high mountain. And my father took us there one day, and half of the village there still has the name of these people.
Half of the village are still called Burundi.
Burundi, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But in Austria, we're the only ones. We're the only ones.
How was your relationship and up to today growing up with your siblings? I mean, you were their mother.
Yeah.
So
I think very good. Very good. I was always, no, but sometimes, you know, it was hard for them because my mother always compared them to me. If you only were like your big sister. And that doesn't give you a good standing with your siblings, you know.
It doesn't.
And so that was not easy. A lot of times I felt lonely. But as we grew up, I have a very good relationship now. Very good. Especially with my brother, I always had the very best relationship because, you know, we were very close, very close. And as my father said, you know, you'll never amount to anything because you give everything away. He always said, you are all wrong. She will be the most blessed in the family. And I was shocked that he would say something like this because I didn't see it that way, you know.
Yeah.
But he is really, he's right. I'm the most blessed in the family.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Wow. So now it's something good to drink for you. Look here. This is my wonderful Mama Aisha. Thank you, Mama Aisha.
Thank you so much.
So we drink later.
So you are growing up during the Second World War, and the Second World War means Hitler.
Yeah.
Everything about the Second World War. What would you say about him, if any comments or lessons, whether from the negative or from the positive?
Yeah. Well, you know, Hitler was a Nazi. He hated the Jews, and he was very racistic. And my family saw through that very early. They were very anti-Hitler, very anti-Hitler, not Nazi, and that is also a blessing for the family. You know? And so, for example, I wanted to go to Israel very much, but I never dared to go because I was Austrian. And Israel, the Jews have suffered so much through the Nazis, like they ended up in the gas chambers. You know, they were robbed of everything, and even to this day there's still money laying in Swiss banks from people that died in the gas chambers. And when I read the diary of Anne Frank, a Jewish lady, I was 15 years old. My goodness, I cried through the whole book, and I said, if that was still going on, I would go with her into the the gas chambers. I felt God gave me, since I was a little child, a big heart for those that were like Africa.
Underprivileged.
The underprivileged ones. And my mother told me when I was 5, 6 years old, I always wanted to take all the poor children that I found on the road home. Even then already I felt we need to help, because children are helpless, you know. So, yeah, Hitler, my family, by God's grace, was totally anti-Hitler. And that is also a blessing, you know. So, he was a bad man. I was just in Paraguay, and there are a lot of Nazis that moved there. And they even believe that the grave of Hitler is in Paraguay.
Nazi temples to date in Paraguay.
But his grave is there. And the Nazis still meet in Paraguay.
The religion is still alive.
Yeah, well, it's just a hate towards anything that God loves. And it's demonic, that's satanic. Yeah. No, I'm very thankful that my family was anti-Nazi, and I'm sure it's because of my so believing grandmother, who was such a firm believer, and who prayed for the family to be protected, and who was like a general, you know, Heil Jesus, Savior Jesus. And that makes a big impact on children and on grandchildren. I admired my grandmother very much. She was, you know, she also, at her 80th birthday, we said, Chacha, what would you like to have? She said, well, I would like to have a new outfit, but don't choose old colors. I think she would be happy that I now, in my 85th year, wear happy colors.
Happy colors.
Yeah.
You must have gotten that from her.
Yeah. No, my grandfather, he was much, much older than my grandmother. Florley, get out. He was much older, and he died. You know, it's interesting. My grandfather was an artist in, you know, those little stones that they make mosaics out of it. He made huge images of Christ and saints in churches. He was a well-known artist. He was married, but never got any children. And my grandmother became a maid in that house. And then his wife died, and then she married this man who was about 30 years older than she was, you know. And she had 9 children with him.
Wow.
And I think 2 died, but the rest were girls, and my father was the only son. Yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
What a story. So, you were growing up in the middle of bullets and rockets in the Second World War. Are there any lessons or lasting impressions that the war and experience left in your life?
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
I mean, of course, I hate war under any circumstances. In a war, nobody wins anything. War is always a loss on both sides. And so I hate war. Jesus came to bring peace and to bring reconciliation and forgiveness and understanding. And wars are definitely from Satan. So I hate wars. But, you know, the Bible even says now in the end times we will hear rumors of war.
Rumors of war.
And many nations will rise up, but the big one is yet to come. But I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of dying, so whatever God has planned is fine with me.
Sure. Let us use maybe some more minutes to try to conclude your education story.
Yeah.
About any things that you remember in high school and then college when you're doing business administration.
Yeah.
Which your father wanted to do, but he did not.
Yeah. And it would never have been my choice. But my father trained me already when I was 5, 6 years old. People asked me, what will you be? I will study business and administration. I don't even know what it was, But I thought I would fail my life if I wouldn't do it.
For your father's sake.
For my father's sake. And then when I finished, I was working with a CPA. And my CPA, one that does taxes, that does bookkeeping for other people.
Oh, CPA.
CPA.
Yeah, accounting.
Yeah,
okay.
Accounting. And my teachers, who loved me very much, my professors from school, said, you don't belong into an office. You belong amongst the people. We invite you to start teaching. But I had no training. They said, but you can start with shorthand and typewriting. So I did. I started teaching, and I became a very good teacher. And I was always very good in shorthand. Shorthand means you can write any speech in a new language. It's a new writing, and so I had great fun with the students. My nickname was everywhere.
Everywhere.
Mummy.
Mummy.
I was the mummy everywhere. And so during the holidays, I took my studies and I did my exams. And so I have the exams for high school teaching. And then I went to England for a year as a volunteer.
Which year was that?
My goodness. I think I was 25 years old.
25. So you must have taught for quite some time.
Yeah, for quite some time. But I felt that God wanted me to learn English very well. And I signed up in Cambridge University, and I studied English there. And I was with a very lovely family, and that was a good time, very good time. Then I came back, and then I taught shorthand, typewriting, and English. Yeah, I enjoy teaching very much. Also you have a lot of holidays. So I could do a lot of things. I did a lot of traveling. Oh, I need to share that also. I think that still goes to my childhood. That's very important. I grew up in a place where there are high mountains in the front, high mountains in the back, and a river through the valley, and this was their world. And it bothered me from the beginning, there must be something behind these mountains. But nobody ever talked about it or had a desire to go behind. I wanted to know what is behind those mountains. There must be a world, I felt like in a cage there. So then when I was a high school teacher, I had money and I had time. So I planned big trips. Big trips. And for 5 years, every holiday that I had, and if it was just a week, I got out of this cage in Tyrol to smell the big world. And you know what? After 5 years, God came to me and said, Maria, are you giving up traveling? And I already had the reputation to be a very adventurous young lady. I said, Lord, why should I give that up? I'm not doing anything bad. You can come with me every time. How generous, He said, I didn't ask you if I could come with you. Are you willing to give up traveling? I said, Lord, I could go to Israel. I said, I didn't ask you if you go to Israel. Will you give up traveling? God had to ask Peter 3 times to love me. The 3rd time, I said, I can visit missionaries. Their flesh the good flesh gets very religious before it dies.
Yes.
And then I got convicted. God said, I didn't ask you if I could go with you, if you should go to Israel or visit missionaries. Will you give up traveling? That was my escape to get out of this narrow-minded little place that I was living in. But I realized I was serving an idol, a self-made idol. to survive in that cage. And you know what? I said, Lord, forgive me. I have really, really done this to my own rescue. When things got very tight, I didn't say, Jesus, come and help me. I said, how long is it to the next trip? 5 weeks? Oh, I can take that. Okay? It was my self-made escape. And I was so shocked. I was so embarrassed how blind I was. You know, I was constantly broke. Those trips ate all my money. And I was constantly driven. It was like somebody was behind me. Next trip, next trip, next trip. And when he asked me, and I realized I was serving an idol, it was unbelievable what happened to me. Peace came in my heart. I repented. That driver was gone. I was no longer pushed for the next trip. And I said, Lord, I will never make a trip in my life for my rescue. I will stay where I am for the rest of my life. If you want me to meet people, you bring them to me. Wow, it was unbelievable, the deliverance that I had. And then 2 days later, I drove with my car to a neighbor in the next village, and I heard a loud voice, you will see the whole world.
Wow.
All in connection with my good news, with the gospel. I said, wow, Lord, that was a good change, a good exchange.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I have been around the world. I've been in South America, North America. I have been in Mongolia, in Russia, in Israel, in South America, in North America, in Africa, almost every nation. And the only places that are still missing is New Zealand. And this July I will fly to New Zealand. I've been invited for 3 weeks.
For 3 weeks to New Zealand?
Yeah, with the Pastor Daniel. We will preach in television, in radios, and in conferences. But I am not going anywhere unless I'm invited. And unless I am under the leadership of that pastor that invites me. So, you know, I've been now in Paraguay just last year, in India, in Dubai, in Europe 3 months, and everything is paid. I'm no longer broke.
Wow. Speaking about your spirituality and your relationship with God ever since you became, you know, saved at 7 when you invited Christ in. I don't know, how old were you by the time when he demands that you drop your anger and thirst for trips?
Okay. Well, I was already over 30.
Over 30. So you had journeyed and progressed with him, and you had some wonderful experience with him before that time. How would you judge your religious experiences? Well,
you know, I mean, my life seemed extremely normal. People thought it was wonderful how enterprising I am and how daring, and I took a lot of dias because we didn't have this little machine yet, you know. And I invited people and I shared with them, and they never said, stop it, you know. They were very excited about my adventures. And of course, everywhere I went, I wanted to get to know the people. I wanted to get to know how they live, what they believe. And it was even then already that I brought a lot of Jesus. Yeah. But now I am free. I don't need to I'm not planning holidays at all, unless God gives me the order. I'm totally free in Christ.
Wow. At 30, a woman, one would think that, okay, why isn't she thinking about getting married? She's 30.
That's another chapter.
Yeah. That's another chapter.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for watching. That's another chapter. Wait for it. Maria Buruni, if I should use the last name, she says, and we can attest to this, she's more African, than very many Africans for
Amen.
real. Despite the fact that her skin is not as black as mine, her spirit and soul is African. She has been around, she has stayed with us, she has helped so many of our brothers and sisters. And we can attest to this. Her book will be a great read for you. Wait for more chapters, wait for more interviews. I'm sure that you're not going to remain the same. We thank Saved to Saved Company, who are our biggest investors. They are dropping in the money. We sell land, we do land surveying, we do land titling, we do all sorts of real estate, stuff. Please give us business, because these are the investors that we have who are ditching in their monies. And if you're there and you're a Christian businessman and you want to be part of this lovely, lovely project, please, you're welcome. Come, let us join hands and feed this ministry. We are going to do books. We have told you we have books coming in for Christianity at 150. Since 1877, how the church has influenced the political, economic, and social landscape of Uganda. How has the church helped in? We have Pentecostalism at 70. It's coming in. We have all the fathers, the patriarchs and matriarchs of our country, the leaders of our faith in every denomination, Baptist, Anglican, the Pentecostals, and every denomination. There are men and women who have done extraordinary things for the gospel, for the sake of Jesus Christ. We are going to record them. We have Archbishop Ntagari book coming in. We have Apostle John Mulinde, Apostle Michael Chimori, Bishop Cherwada. I mean, everyone that you can think of. Apostle Mitara Alex, who has done wonderfully in the generations past. We are going to record their records for our own sake and for posterity to come. Do not stop watching. Subscribe and keep subscribing. Keep telling people, here is the thing. It's a new thing. The faith of our fathers. After Uganda, we go East Africa, Kenya, Rwanda, Burundi. What has happened in Tanzania? Then we shall scale over to the entire Africa. These things must be kept for the sake of the posterity that is coming our way. If the West have their records, Africa should tell their story.
Amen.
Keep watching.